Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, Real English Conversation. Advanced English lesson topic name is Why Some People Always Win While Others Quit. Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive into something pretty fundamental. The architecture of persistence, you could say, is a topic that really it touches everything, doesn't it? From learning a language like English to building relationships, even launching huge companies. We've all seen them, right? Those people who just seem to push through incredible odds. They hit their goals again and again. It's like this relentless resolve, almost superhuman sometimes. But then you often see others, maybe with just as much talent, maybe even more. Well, they hit the first real wall. They just they falter. So our mission today is to get past the usual motivational talk and really try to figure out what's the operational difference here. What's the unseen blueprint, the psychological stuff, the strategies, what separates the determined from those who give up too soon.
That's exactly it. We're not looking at this as, just luck or some innate gift. It's more like a system, something you can actually study, understand, and maybe even replicate. We're going to explore the whole picture. The mindsets, like how people interpret failure, the actual strategies they use for managing their time and resources, and also the environment around them. Does it help or hinder? Because when you put all these pieces together, you start to see the real structure behind lasting success. And maybe why, for the quote-unquote winners, quitting just doesn't seem like a logical option most of the time.
Okay, let's try and unpack this internal operating system then.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about grit, and yeah, it's important. But it feels like the people who really sustain achievement have something more complex going on inside. It's not just being stubborn, is it? It's a different way of seeing challenges, effort, everything.
Yeah, the starting point really has to be how fundamentally different mindsets interpret the world. Specifically, Dr. Carol Dweck's work on the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. It's foundational here. So the fixed mindset basically operates on this core belief that your abilities, your intelligence, your talents, they're static. They're fixed traits. You've got a certain amount, and that's kind of it.
Okay, so if someone believes their ability is set in stone, what happens when they face something genuinely hard?
Well, often they'll just avoid it, or maybe put in minimal effort, and this is key. They fear failure because, in their view, failing is like public proof of their limitations, these permanent limits that they believe they have. Even worse, they often see the effort itself as a negative sign. Like if you have to struggle really hard, it must mean you're not naturally talented enough. So protecting their ego, maintaining that illusion of innate talent becomes the top priority. And that makes them, very prone to quitting.
Right, because trying hard and failing is worse in that view than not trying at all.
Exactly. Whereas the growth mindset, it just completely flips the script on that. The growth mindset is built on the conviction that abilities aren't fixed. They can be developed through dedication, through hard work, through learning. So challenges, they're not threats. They're seen as essential opportunities to grow, to expand. And failure, it's not some, personal condemnation. It's just data, invaluable feedback helping you refine your approach.
That's a huge shift.
Yeah.
Failure becomes information, not judgment.
Precisely. Every setback is a chance to learn. Every struggle is a necessary step towards mastery. It's that powerful little shift in language, from I can't do this or I'm not smart enough for this
To I can't do it yet.
Exactly. Adding that, I can't do it yet, but I can develop the skills.
Yeah.
That small linguistic change, it's a massive catalyst for persistence.
Okay, so we talk about resilience a lot, bouncing back from difficulty, absorbing a hit and getting back to where you were. But I found it really interesting that some thinking suggests the truly unstoppable go further into something called anti-fragility.
Mm-hmm. Resilience is absolutely crucial. It's the ability to withstand stress, take a hit, and return to your original state sort of unchanged. But yeah, anti-fragility, a concept Nassim Nicholas Taleb explored really deeply, describes systems or people that actually benefit from shocks, from volatility, from disorder. They don't just survive the stress, they literally get stronger because of it.
But doesn't that sound a bit, reckless? Like seeking out stress. How do you do that without just burning out? Is just being lucky enough to survive risky stuff?
That's a really important distinction. It's not about being reckless. It's about calculated exposure. Think of it like this. A resilient person might build really thick walls to keep uncertainty out. An anti-fragile person or system focuses more on building internal processes, maybe redundancy, so that when uncertainty does hit, the failure of one small part actually informs and strengthens the whole thing. They kind of learn from the break.
Okay, like the immune system getting stronger after fighting off a bug.
Exactly like that. Or think about muscles needing resistance training to grow. Or even a forest ecosystem that actually becomes healthier after a controlled burn clears out the undergrowth. They recognize that some level of stress, some volatility is actually necessary for growth. So an anti-fragile person might actively seek out environments or challenges where, small failures are expected, even welcomed as part of the learning process. It tempers their resolve. They're not just weathering the storm, they're using the storm to become a better sailor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So resilience is about enduring. Anti-fragility is about transforming through pressure.
Well put.
All right, another key piece of this mindset puzzle seems to be what psychologists call the internal locus of control. This idea that you fundamentally believe you are responsible for your own successes and failures. It sounds like taking ownership to the extreme.
It really is that core conviction. You are at the helm of your own ship. People with a strong internal locus of control, they acknowledge that, external stuff happens, recessions, competitors, bad luck, whatever, things outside their control. But their focus, crucially, remains on their response to those events. Because that response is always within their power, this deep sense of agency. It's like a psychological shield. It protects against feeling helpless.
And the flip side, the external locus of control, that sounds like, a recipe for quitting.
Yeah.
Because it sort of justifies giving up, doesn't it?
It absolutely can be. If you operate mainly from an external locus, you tend to attribute what happens to you to luck, fate, powerful others, maybe the system being unfair.
Yeah.
So you quickly start feeling like a pawn, a victim of forces you can't control. And when a setback hits, which it inevitably will, that mindset gives you an easy out. You can complain, you can blame external factors, and ultimately you feel justified in quitting because, you feel powerless.
So the difference is stark. One person says, I failed because the market conditions were terrible.
Mm-hmm. Well, the person with the internal locus says, okay, the market conditions were terrible and I failed because my strategy wasn't adaptable enough. What do I need to change in my approach? They refuse that victim narrative. They take ownership, knowing that even when things are tough, their power lies in how they choose to react and adapt.
Okay, so we've got growth mindset, anti-fragility, internal locus of control. These give you the sort of mental engine. But where do you point it? It seems like having a clear, powerful sense of purpose is absolutely vital, often something bigger than just yourself.
Yes, this provides the essential why. You absolutely need a compelling why behind the struggle. It's the intrinsic motivation, the deep internal drive that keeps you going long after the initial excitement or, extrinsic rewards like money or recognition start to fade. An unstoppable mindset needs that anchor, a purpose that feels genuinely meaningful to you.
And then purpose acts like ballast. When things get really rough and you're tempted to just give up.
Exactly like ballast. It provides stability when the inevitable storms hit. When the short-term comfort of quitting looks really appealing, you weigh it against the long-term satisfaction of fulfilling this deeply held vision or purpose. Suddenly, persisting feels like the more rational choice, even if it's harder right now. This purpose becomes like a renewable energy source. It clarifies the path when you're feeling lost or motivation dips, which it always does. It gives you a non-negotiable reason to just show up day after day, even when progress feels incredibly slow or, frankly, boring.
So the growth mindset helps you handle the feedback and setbacks along the way, but the purpose tells you why you're bothering to handle them in the first place. It keeps you pointed in the right direction.
Yes, perfectly put. It transforms the struggle from feeling like some kind of punishment into feeling like a necessary investment in a future that you genuinely care about achieving.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the mindset, the internal fuel. But mindset alone isn't enough, right? You need the vehicle. Persistence needs to be strategic. Just throwing effort blindly at a problem can lead straight to burnout and, quitting. So what are the actual operational tools, the strategies that these persistent people use? #A. Goal setting and planning, smart and beyond.
Absolutely. Strategy is key, and it usually starts with really meticulous planning, moving way beyond just vague wishes. Persistent people definitely tend to embrace those foundational SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. That gives clarity.
But I feel like lots of people set SMART goals and still end up quitting. What's the difference? What sets the really persistent folks apart in how they plan?
I think it's their dynamic approach and, crucially, their execution. They are often obsessive about breaking down those big, maybe intimidating long-term objectives into much smaller, manageable steps, like weekly or even daily actions. And this isn't just about making it feel less overwhelming, although that helps. The main point is to create this constant, reliable stream of mini victories.
Okay.
Little wins along the way.
Exactly. These mini victories are vital for psychological momentum. Each little step you complete gives you immediate, tangible proof that you're making progress. And that continuous feedback loop, that sense of I'm moving forward, that's what fuels motivation over the long haul.
So they're not just looking at the mountain peak, they're focused on the next few steps on the trail.
Mm-hmm.
What about the plan itself? Is it set in stone?
No, not at all. That's another key difference. They tend to see their plan not as some rigid script they have to follow perfectly, but more like a living document, a map that might need updating. They're often really good at using dynamic planning frameworks, maybe something like OKRs, objectives, and key results, which force you to check in frequently and measure progress objectively. So when things change, when new information comes up or something unexpected happens, they don't just throw the whole plan out. They course correct, they adjust the route, but they never abandon the destination. Their commitment is to the outcome, not necessarily to the specific path they first mapped out. Yeah, that makes sense. Another big reason people quit seems to be hitting problems that feel like insurmountable walls, total dead ends. But the winners, they seem to reframe those. They see them more like complex puzzles to be solved.
Yes, that reframing is critical. And their approach to solving these puzzles is usually very analytical and, importantly, proactive. They actually spend time anticipating potential problems, running through the what-ifs, developing contingency plans. They kind of operate on the assumption that problems are inevitable, not exceptions. So they're mentally prepared when they do show up.
Okay, so they're not surprised by difficulty.
Right. And when a serious issue does arise, their first instinct isn't panic or blame, it's analysis. They focus on finding the root cause, not just patching up the surface symptoms. They might implicitly use techniques like, the 5 whys, keep asking why, until you get to the fundamental issue, not just the immediate glitch.
So they're like detectives trying to find the real source of the problem, not just cleaning up the mess.
Exactly. And this often involves a lot of creative, sometimes lateral thinking. If the straightforward approach isn't working, they're willing to step back, look at it from different angles, maybe try something unconventional. This methodical, sort of structured, lower emotion approach to problems really minimizes the psychological wear and tear. They're not just battering against the wall with sheer willpower. They're applying logic and structure to figure out how to dismantle it or go around it. That makes dealing with difficulty sustainable. #, C, resourcefulness and adaptability.
Okay, what about one of the most common excuses we hear for giving up? I just don't have the resources. Not enough time, not enough money, don't have the right skills. How do persistent people get around that trap?
Yeah, that's a big one. They tend to be masters of resourcefulness. They inherently understand that waiting for the perfect conditions or the right amount of funding or whatever, that's often just a form of procrastination. So instead, they operate on the principle of leveraging whatever they do have right now. Sometimes that means creatively repurposing tools they already have or finding really scrappy, low-cost solutions, bootstrapping it.
Right, using what's available rather than lamenting what's missing.
Precisely. They have this commitment. The destination is non-negotiable, but the method of getting there is flexible. So if the ideal plan needs expensive software they can't afford, they'll figure out how to get 80% of the way there using a basic spreadsheet and some extra effort.
So the outcome is the focus, and they're willing to take the scenic route or even the bumpy dirt road if the highway's closed. That adaptability seems crucial.
Oh, absolutely. Their adaptability is like a superpower. If an initial strategy fails, maybe a marketing campaign bombs, they don't waste time mourning it. They analyze the data, figure what went wrong, and pivot quickly. They adjust their approach, and if needed, they go out and acquire the necessary skills fast. Persistent people are often very good learners. They know how to learn, this constant willingness to experiment, learn from feedback, adjust the plan. It's the powerful antidote to that rigid, easily discouraged mindset that leads people to just give up.
Okay, this next one, I think it might be the most underestimated tool of all. Consistency. We're so often drawn to these big, intense bursts of effort. The all-nighter, the heroic push, feels dramatic, but maybe not effective long-term.
Those intense, sporadic bursts, they're almost always a recipe for burnout. Emotionally, physically, they just aren't sustainable. And they usually lead to quitting eventually. The winners, the truly persistent ones, understand and rely on the quiet power of the compound effect. Small, sustained, sometimes even boring efforts done consistently over time. They prioritize discipline over motivation because motivation, as we know, it comes and goes. It depends on your mood, circumstances. It's fickle. But discipline. Discipline is about building habits that carry you through, regardless of how you feel.
Yeah, it's like the difference between going to the gym for a marathon section once a month versus just doing 30 minutes every single day.
Yeah.
The daily habit feels less impressive in the moment, but the results over time are way bigger.
Yep. Exactly. It's that daily, consistent application of effort. Even when it's inconvenient, even when it's not exciting, it builds this incredible psychological momentum. Think about compound interest in finance, right? Those small, regular deposits don't look like much at first, but over years, they generate huge returns. It's the same with effort. That steady march forward actually starts to feel easier than stopping. The inertia is powerful. Disrupting the habit by quitting creates more friction than just keeping going. It builds this self-reinforcing cycle of discipline and progress.
Okay, so we've looked at the winning side. Now let's shift focus a bit and analyze the other side. The fissures, you could say, the specific reasons, the missteps that lead people to surrender. It's important to see quitting not usually as one big dramatic failure, but more often the end result of accumulating weaknesses or missteps in their approach. Hashtag tag A. Fear is a dominant factor.
Yeah, and right at the heart of so much quitting, it seems, is fear. It feels like this multi-headed beast that paralyzes people way more often than actual lack of ability. It's absolutely a huge psychological barrier. You've got the obvious one, fear of failure. You know, the potential embarrassment, the shame, people saying, I told you so. But just as powerful, sometimes even more insidious, is the fear of success. That sounds weird, right? But success brings pressure, responsibility, maybe the fear of judgment once you're in the spotlight, fear of not being able to sustain it.
And these fears, they don't always show up as outright panic. Sometimes they disguise themselves.
Yeah.
Like procrastination.
Oh, absolutely. Procrastination is a classic defense mechanism. It's driven by this flawed internal logic that goes something like, if I don't really try my hardest, or if I put it off until the last minute, or if I don't finish, well, then if I fail, it's because I didn't have enough time or didn't give full effort, not because I wasn't capable.
So it protects the ego. It preserves the idea that you could have succeeded if things were different.
Exactly. It protects the ego in the short term, keeps that illusion of potential alive. But the cost is huge. It prevents actual achievement. Fear keeps you feeling safe, maybe, but it definitely keeps you small. Hashtag tag B. Lack of clarity and impatience. Another major reason people drift into quitting is simply starting out without a clear map. We talked about planning, but so many people jump into big goals with, great intentions, but really fuzzy ideas about the destination or the path. This lack of clarity is a huge problem. When goals are vague or when someone keeps jumping from one thing to the next, that shiny object syndrome, the whole endeavor just feels overwhelming. There's no clear direction.
Yeah, if the vision is blurry, then any little bump in the road can feel like proof that the whole thing is pointless. You don't have that clear compass, that true north to guide you back when you get knocked off course.
That's it, precisely. They get swamped by the sheer size of the task because they never really broke it down into those manageable steps we discussed. And then compounding this is just impatience. This modern cultural thing where we expect instant results for everything.
The need for instant gratification.
Right. People quit when that initial buzz, that first wave of motivation, the honeymoon phase, inevitably wears off. They drastically underestimate how long mastery actually takes. They compare their messy, difficult middle part of the journey to someone else's polished highlight reel. So often, they give up right before they hit that critical point, that tipping point where things start to click. Sometimes it's called the valley of despair. They just don't recognize that real, significant progress is almost always slow, gradual, and definitely not linear. Hashtag tag. Victim mentality and poor emotional management. And we need to circle back to that external locus of control again, but look at it now specifically as a victim mentality. People who quit often fall back on blaming things outside themselves. The circumstances were against me, it was just bad luck, the system is rigged, so-and-so sabotaged me.
And while that might feel sort of comforting in the moment, blaming something else, it completely removes any sense of personal responsibility, right? Which makes trying to find a solution feel kind of pointless.
Exactly. If you truly believe uncontrollable external forces are deliberately stopping you, then why bother trying to find solutions? It seems futile. Quitting becomes the only logical response to what feels like oppression. And layered on top of this is often poor emotional management. Look, pursuing any big goal is inherently emotional. It's a roller coaster. There's frustration, boredom, anxiety, doubt. It's all part of the package.
Yeah, nobody feels motivated and excited every single day.
Not at all. And if you don't have the skills to manage those difficult, uncomfortable emotions to self-regulate, You're prone to making impulsive decisions based on temporary feelings, like deciding to quit just because you feel frustrated or bored right now. They mistake that temporary discomfort, which is actually often a sign of growth, for a permanent state of suffering that they need to escape immediately. They confuse the necessary growing pains with, like, a fatal diagnosis. Okay, so mindset and strategy are huge, but we absolutely cannot ignore the environment. Humans are fundamentally social creatures. The people around us, the structures we operate within, they either act like wind in our sails or like anchors dragging us down. Success rarely happens in a vacuum. It's often nurtured by an intentionally created system. Hashtag, the supportive ecosystem.
Let's start with mentorship and role models. It feels like very few people achieve really big things totally alone. What do those relationships give you beyond just practical advice?
Mentors offer accountability, sure, and practical guidance. But maybe even more importantly, they provide a vital proof of concept. Just seeing someone else, whether it's a famous figure or someone you know personally who has successfully navigated a similar challenging path, it ignites belief. It makes it feel possible. If they could do it, maybe I can too. Their stories become like a roadmap, offering encouragement during those really tough moments of self-doubt. And then there's the huge impact of your peer group. This idea of social contagion is real. You tend to absorb the standards, the attitudes, the behaviors of the people you spend the most time with.
For better or worse.
Exactly. Surround yourself with motivated, positive, growth-oriented people, and it naturally lifts your own standards. It gives you collaborators for problem solving, it normalizes ambition and persistence. But surround yourself with cynical, complacent, or negative people. That normalizes giving up. It reinforces blaming external factors. It can slowly, steadily drain your own drive. Choosing your peer group wisely is a strategic act.
And then there's creating structure for yourself, right? Like external supports for when that internal motivation inevitably fluctuates.
Yes, structure and accountability systems are critical external guardrails against quitting. This means things like setting up non-negotiable daily or weekly routines, having clear, preferably public, deadlines, and maybe most powerfully, getting accountability partners or making public commitments.
Like telling people what you're going to do.
Right. Just knowing that other people are aware of your goal, maybe even counting on you, or that you'll have to report your progress or lack thereof to someone, that's a really potent psychological deterrent against just quietly throwing in the towel when things get hard. And maybe one more environmental factor we shouldn't forget is basic self-care. It sounds simple, but the relentless pursuit of goals can be exhausting. Physical and emotional depletion is a fast track to quitting.
Yeah, burnout is real.
Totally. So people who sustain effort over the long haul usually recognize that prioritizing things like enough sleep, decent nutrition, maybe some mindfulness or stress reduction practices, that's not luxury. It's essential maintenance for the engine. Working smarter, maintaining a sustainable pace, allowing for recovery that's crucial for avoiding the kind of burnout that forces you to quit. Okay, so if we've talked about all these concepts, how can someone listening actually start bridging the gap? How do you apply this stuff? Let's start with developing that growth mindset. You have to consciously practice something called cognitive reappraisal.
Cognitive reappraisal. Sounds a bit technical. What does that mean in practice?
It just means actively, systematically reframing setbacks the moment they happen. So instead of that default negative thought like, why me? Or, ugh, I'm so bad at this. You deliberately pivot. You force yourself to ask different questions, actionable questions like, okay, what can I learn from this? What does this data tell me? Which specific part of my strategy needs adjusting? It can be really helpful to keep a learning journal. Track not just whether you succeeded or failed, but what you learned, what skills you practiced, what effort you put in. Celebrate the process, not just the outcome.
So instead of thinking, I failed the presentation, you think,
okay, the section on market analysis wasn't clear enough. I need to find 2 better examples and practice that section 3 more times before the next meeting. See the difference? It shifts from a judgment on you to a problem with the approach that can be fixed.
Makes sense. What about tackling that huge barrier we talked about, just inaction, often driven by fear or feeling overwhelmed? Yeah, how do you just start when something feels too big or too scary? There are actually some neat little psychological tricks or techniques. To fight procrastination, you could try the 5-second rule, literally count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, G, go, and physically move towards the task before your brain can talk you out of it. Or there's the eat the frog method, tackle your single biggest, ugliest, most important task first thing in the morning. Get it done before decision fatigue sets in.
Exactly. And if a task feels utterly overwhelming, the answer is Always, always break it down smaller into ridiculous micro actions. Something so small it feels almost silly not to do it, like open the document or write one sentence or find one phone number.
Okay, like the absolute tiniest first step.
Yes, because that first tiny step breaks the inertia. It builds a little bit of micro momentum, and often once you've started, continuing feels much easier than stopping again. And finally, dealing with that pervasive fear of failure, fear of judgment. The key isn't to eliminate fear. That's probably impossible. The key is to acknowledge it. Okay, I feel scared right now. And then act anyway. Act despite the fear. You can challenge the fearful thoughts using basic CBT ideas. Ask yourself, is this fear realistic? What's the actual worst thing that could happen? How likely is it, really? How would I cope if it did? Often, just examining the fear rationally shrinks it down.
So acknowledge the fear, but don't let it drive the bus.
Pretty much. And it all comes back to this core principle, which sounds simple, but is so hard to live by. Focus relentlessly on progress, not perfection. Just taking one small, imperfect step forward is always, always better than waiting for the perfect moment or plan, which often means doing nothing at all. Imperfect action beats perfect inaction every single time. Hashtag outro. So if we try to boil down this whole deep dive, the real difference between those who consistently achieve their goals and those who tend to quit early, it's very rarely about some magical innate talent gap. Instead, it seems to be about the cumulative power of things that can be cultivated. Cultivated mindsets like embracing growth and becoming anti-fragile. Smart, strategic actions like breaking things down, being consistent, adapting, and building supportive environments around yourself. It's the whole system working together.
Yeah, the path to anything worthwhile is always going to have obstacles. It's going to have setbacks, moments where you really doubt yourself. That seems unavoidable. But the winners, they've just developed better systems, internal and external, for enduring those moments, for learning from them, and for just continuing to put one foot in front of the other, even when they can't quite see the finish line. So maybe here's a final thought for you, listener, to chew on. Perhaps true winning isn't just about hitting a specific target or getting a specific prize. Maybe it's more about the relentless pursuit itself, the commitment to keep striving, keep learning, keep becoming the best version of yourself through that persistent effort. And maybe quitting, then, isn't just failing at one task. Maybe it's forfeiting that ongoing potential, voluntarily giving up on that future, better version of yourself. Something to think about. We really hope this conversation has given you some valuable insights today. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, Real English Conversation. Advanced English lesson topic name is 15 Simple Habits for Lifelong Successes. Today we're doing a deep dive into, well, a really actionable roadmap for success. It's a framework with 15 key habits for hitting your big goals, personal, professional, financial, you name it. We've looked through this comprehensive guide, and our mission here is to pull out the most surprising and useful insights you can start using right away.
Right. And the core idea really is quite empowering. It suggests you already have the potential to do extraordinary things. The gap between potential and, well, actually achieving it often comes down to knowing how to begin, staying consistent, and adopting some specific foundational habits. These habits turn ambition into real results. Okay, so before we even get to the habits themselves, there's a foundational step we absolutely have to cover: defining success. And this definition, it has to be personal. For real motivation, for that deep satisfaction, you first need to figure out what makes you feel happy, what feels like accomplishment. Is it money, emotional well-being, family harmony, chasing someone else's idea of success? Well, that's just a recipe for burnout eventually.
That makes total sense. Your heart really has to be in it for the long haul, doesn't it? And speaking of the long haul, let's jump into habit 1. Always live with a positive mindset.
Yeah, it's easy to wave this off as, a bit cliche, but the guide gives it actual scientific backing. Every single action starts with a thought. So transforming your life really begins by shifting those thoughts toward the positive. And here's something concrete. Medical studies show positive thinkers are actually 13% less likely to have a heart attack, even with a family history.
Wow, 13%. So positivity isn't just about feeling good, it genuinely boosts your physical resilience.
Exactly. It lowers stress, sharpens how you cope when things inevitably go sideways. The advice, pretty straightforward. Boost your optimism by consciously smiling more, using humor in tough spots, and practicing positive self-talk intentionally.
Okay, optimism is the fuel. Habit 2 sounds like the steering wheel. Set SMART goals.
Yeah.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. We hear this acronym all the time. But according to the guide, what's the part most people tend to miss when setting these goals?
It's often the measurable bit. People set these vague intentions like, I want to get better at my job. But for real action, you need numbers. Instead of get more leads, it should be something like generate 250 business leads by the end of Q3. Quantifying it makes you accountable, gives you a clear target.
And that relevant part is just as critical, Ro. If the goal, even perfectly measured, doesn't actually align with what brings you personal fulfillment,
then the effort feels hollow in the end. Spot on. If it's not tied to your core values, the motivation just won't last. Which, speaking of intensity, leads us neatly into habit 3, the famous eat a frog concept, tackling that hardest, maybe least appealing task first.
it's a great metaphor for not getting stuck in busy work. But what if, my day has like 3 equally horrible frogs? How do I choose when everything feels huge? And doesn't tackling the biggest thing first sometimes make the rest of the day feel a bit flat?
That's a common challenge, definitely. You can't eat 3 frogs at once. The key question to ask is, if I only got one thing done today, which one would make the biggest impact on my overall success? Focus on impact, not just how much you dislike the task. Nailing that high-impact item first gives you this huge psychological boost. It frees up mental energy for the smaller stuff later.
Right, momentum. Okay, last one for this section. Habit 4, prioritizing your health. It's so easy to get caught up in tasks and just forget about the body and mind doing the work.
Successful people don't see health as optional. It's a non-negotiable asset, both physical and mental. Being fit boosts self-esteem, fuels that positive thinking we talked about, and gives you the actual physical energy to keep going when others might be flagging. The core habits are still the basics. Eating well, getting some physical activity daily, and making sure you get enough rest. Rest is crucial for a sharp, productive mind.
Okay, so we've set the foundation: mindset, goals, priorities. How do we build that inner strength to keep going when things get tough? That seems to be about habit 5, believe in yourself and your abilities.
Confidence really is the engine for action. If you struggle with self-belief, the advice is practical. Actually list your positive attributes. Are you organized? A good listener? Good at generating ideas? Maybe a solid planner? Can feel a bit awkward, listing your own strengths.
Yeah, like bragging almost.
Right. But the guide argues this self-awareness is vital. When you hit a rough patch, you need to anchor yourself to those past wins, those specific strengths you know you have.
That internal belief feels like a good bridge to habit 6. Have fun. I mean, we're chasing success ultimately for happiness, right?
Exactly. Stress is pretty much unavoidable when you're aiming high, but actively seeking out humor and enjoyment helps diffuse that tension. And there's a physical payoff too. Smiling, even if you kind of force it at first, can actually help lower your blood pressure and heart rate under stress. But, it's not all just fun and internal belief. We also need outside input, which takes us to habit 7. Talk to others.
This means actually seeking out feedback, doesn't it? From people you trust, friends, family, mentors. And let's be honest, getting constructive criticism can sting a bit sometimes, but the source says to try and see it as a gift for getting better.
Absolutely. That external perspective is crucial for spotting blind spots. But you can't just work constantly based on feedback either. That's a fast track to burnout. Which leads perfectly into habit 8. Take a break. This is so important.
Yeah, even small breaks during the day, or just stepping away when you're hitting a wall, it actually helps you be more effective, right? You come back with fresh eyes, often solving the problem faster than if you just kept grinding.
Precisely. It offers renewed perspective. And that outward look connects to habit 9. Always be learning. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It depends on dedicating time to continuous learning. If you're not spending some time regularly, even just half an hour a day learning more about your field or picking up a new skill, you're essentially standing still.
That continuous improvement mindset is key, but it's way harder if you're constantly looking over your shoulder at what everyone else is doing. That brings us to habit 10, which feels vital for mental health. Stop comparing yourself to others.
Oh, comparison is just brutal. It's unfair because everyone's situation, their background, their goal, it's all unique. True fulfillment really only comes from focusing on your plan, your progress.
Yeah.
You can be happy for others, sure, but your focus has got to stay on your own next step, measured against your starting point.
All right, let's shift to keeping this going long term. Habit 11 is push yourself. Complacency, it seems, is the enemy of progress. Success means keep pushing those comfort zone boundaries, discovering new capabilities.
Yeah, and when things get difficult, which they will, that's when you need to reconnect with your why. What's the benefit, the life change you're aiming for? If you're not getting the results you want, doing things differently, pushing outside that comfort zone is really the only way forward.
And to make sure that push isn't just a one-off burst, habit 12 is crucial. Stay consistent. This sounds like the simple secret between starting something and actually finishing it. The guide mentions a good practical hack. Plan tomorrow tonight. Outline the to-dos, maybe even block out the time.
That planning ahead works wonders. But there's a deeper psychological point too. It's about identity. People who are consistent don't just try to be consistent. They see themselves as consistent people. It becomes part of who they are. And this really supports habit 13. Be prepared, knowing that life will inevitably throw curveballs your way.
Right, so thinking ahead about potential problems and how you might react helps you stay calm and collected instead of panicking when something goes wrong.
Definitely. And if you're serious about lasting success, you have to embrace habit 14. Stop looking for shortcuts. Why do people even look for them if they know deep down the real path takes work? Often it's fear of the hard work itself, or maybe just wanting that instant gratification. But true success demands you engage with the process, the time it takes. That's where you learn the important lessons, build resilience, pick up the nuances.
That adaptability, that ability to change and learn earned through effort, that's what really makes success stick. You just have to put in the time.
Exactly. Which brings us to the final habit, number 15. Change your definition of success. Success isn't some finish line you cross and then you're done. Once you achieve one major goal, the idea is to immediately look for success in another area. Keep the momentum going.
So it creates this kind of positive cycle. Achieving a goal, say, in your personal life, builds a sort of success template in your mind. You literally learn how to succeed by succeeding.
That's the idea. It's synergistic. You should consciously leverage that momentum. Use the confidence, the discipline you gained from hitting a personal target to tackle a challenging career goal, or the other way around. It creates this powerful upward spiral where success starts to feel more natural across the board.
What a great set of principles. Really practical. We started with the idea that we all have this amazing potential inside us. And these 15 habits seem like the essential tools to unlock it, whatever goal you're aiming for. Success really does build on success, fueled by consistency and knowing your own why.
So now that you've heard this roadmap, here's a challenge. Think about the next specific area of your life, health, career, relationships, whatever, where you want to achieve success. And then use that momentum, that learn to succeed by succeeding idea we just talked about, to take the first step. Start now.
That's a powerful final thought. Thanks for this fantastic deep dive today. And for everyone listening, if you enjoyed this conversation and found it useful, please like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. We look forward to having you back for the next deep dive.
Hello and welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack complex topics, looking at the underlying patterns and, well, the practical stuff you can actually use.
That's right.
Today, we're tackling something big, the art of success. Specifically, we're digging into 8 habits of disciplined people. You know, the ones who seem consistently win in the long run.
It's a really important topic because, let's face it, we're kind of obsessed with the overnight success story, aren't we?
Totally. The viral hit, the lucky break.
Exactly. But when you actually look closely at people who achieve lasting success, whether that's in business or sports or even just personal goals, it's almost never about just one single event.
Right. And that's the core idea we want to explore today. Success isn't some random lightning strike. It seems to be more like the predictable result of specific choices made over and over again.
Deliberate choices, yeah. And consistent execution. Our goal here is to get past the sort of feel-good motivation quotes and really look at the mechanics. What are these people actually doing?
And discipline. Sometimes it sounds harsh, right? Like denial or something.
It can have that reputation, definitely. But maybe a better way to think about it is, it's the bridge. It's what connects wanting something big to actually, well, getting it done.
Okay.
It turns a wish into a plan, and then that plan into reality. So we're going to unpack these 8, let's call them high leverage habits that seem to allow certain people to just keep going, keep achieving, and really elevate their whole lives, not just their work.
Sounds good. Where do we start? What's habit number 1?
Okay, so the absolute foundation before any action happens is clarity. Habit 1 is all about having this really solid blueprint.
An unshakable blueprint. I like that.
Yeah. Disciplined winners, they don't just operate on vague hopes like, I want to be successful. They start with a plan that's meticulously crafted. They know what they want, why they want it, and crucially, they've thought through how they're going to get there.
So this is more than just setting a goal. It's about getting rid of any fuzziness.
Completely. We all know the SMART goals acronym, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Well, for these individuals, it's not just a helpful guideline. It's like a non-negotiable standard for any serious objective they set.
Can you give an example? Like the difference?
Okay, so think about wanting to get fit. That's pretty vague.
Right. Doesn't really tell you what to do next.
Exactly. The disciplined approach would be something much more concrete, like, I will run a 10K race in under 50 minutes by October 31st. To do that, I need to train 4 times a week following the specific plan.
Okay. The moment you have that level of detail, the steps become obvious.
Precisely. It creates an immediate framework for action. You're not just dreaming anymore, you're executing because the target is so clear. But it doesn't stop just at defining the endpoint.
What else is involved in this blueprint?
The really clever part is how they work backward from that future success. It's called reverse engineering.
Reverse engineering success.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, you picture that goal already achieved. Maybe it's the completed 10K, or maybe it's launching a product. Then you ask, okay, what needed to happen right before this final step? And then what needed to happen right before that? You keep asking that question, bisecting the journey backward, piece by piece, until you land on the very first action you need to take, like right now.
So it breaks down something potentially overwhelming into smaller, manageable chunks.
Exactly. It transforms this huge, maybe intimidating goal into a series of steps. Like building a house, you start with the design, then you figure out the foundation, the frame, the wiring. Each step depends on the last.
And doing that must reveal what you actually need along the way, right? Like skills or resources.
Absolutely. It clarifies everything. You see what skills you need to develop, what resources you require, maybe even realistic timelines. It just demystifies the whole process.
Takes the how on earth do I do this feeling away.
Yeah, it changes it to, okay, what's the one critical thing I need to nail this week? It also makes the future goal feel much more immediate and actionable today.
And I guess planning like that helps you spot problems early.
Yeah.
Like if you realize you need a certain skill in 6 months, you better start learning it now.
You got it. It prevents those costly surprises later on when you realize a crucial piece is missing right when you need it most.
So this blueprint sounds pretty rigid, though. What happens when things change? Because they always do.
That's a fantastic point, and it leads to a key nuance. The blueprint isn't dogma. It's actually designed to be adaptable.
Okay.
Winners are incredibly committed to the objective, the end goal, but they're surprisingly flexible about the method to get there. Their planning includes contingencies.
Contingency planning.
Yeah.
Like backup plan.
Yeah, or what some people call strategic pessimism. Before they even start, they'll think, okay, what are the top 3 ways this could go wrong?
Like a competitor doing something unexpected or losing a team member.
Right, or a budget cut, a technology shift, anything. And they don't just worry about it. They actively think, if X happens, then we will do Y. They build in buffer resources, alternative routes, plan B, plan C.
So when a roadblock inevitably pops up, it's not a full-blown crisis.
Less likely to be, yeah. It minimizes the shock, the panic, the wasted time. They also built in regular check-ins, maybe monthly, maybe quarterly. Not just to see, are we on track? But is this track still the right one? Does the plan need adjusting based on new information?
So commitment to the goal, but flexibility on the path.
That's the essence of it. It ensures they keep moving forward, even if the original route gets blocked. Tag 2. Habits of internal mastery, self-regulation, and consistency.
Okay, so habit 1 is about that external plan, the blueprint. Where do we go next? It feels like we need to talk about the internal stuff too.
Absolutely. That's where habits 2 and 3 come in. This is all about the inner game, self-mastery. Habit 2 is the mastery of self-regulation.
Self-regulation, it sounds like willpower.
It involves willpower, definitely, but it's maybe broader than that. At its core, it's the learned ability to delay gratification.
The classic marshmallow test idea.
Exactly. And applied constantly in adult life. It's about consistently choosing the bigger, long-term reward over the easy, short-term comfort.
That seems really hard. We're wired for immediate rewards.
We are, and disciplined people understand that. They recognize how those small daily indulgences, hitting snooze one more time, scrolling social media instead of working, the impulse by how they add up. Each little compromise chips away at the energy and focus needed for the main goal.
So how do they fight that urge? Is it just gritting their teeth all day? Because that sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting. And that's a critical point. Willpower, as you said, it's like a muscle. It gets tired. You can't just rely on raw grit all day, every day.
So what's the alternative?
The really disciplined person becomes a master of what you might call environmental design.
Designing their environment. How does that work?
They strategically set up their surroundings, their systems, their routines to make the right choice the easiest choice, or at least easier. It's about reducing friction for good habits and increasing friction for bad ones.
Okay, give me some examples.
All right. If deep, focused work is important, they might pre-commit the night before. Phone charging in another room, browser tabs needed for the task already open, workspace cleared of distractions.
Removing the temptation.
Precisely. Or if fitness is the goal, maybe it's laying out the gym clothes the night before, packing the bag, having a healthy breakfast ready to go. They use physical setups and structures to kind of automate the desired behavior.
So they're basically making fewer decisions in the moment when willpower might be low.
You got it. When they walk into their workspace, the environment signals it's time to focus, not should I check email first. This conserves that precious mental energy, that willpower, for the genuinely tough problems that require real thought, not for fighting basic urges.
That makes a lot of sense, conserving bandwidth.
Yeah. And it's not really about denial either. It's more about recalibrating where you get your satisfaction from.
How so?
They learn to find a deeper, more sustainable gratification in the process itself, the effort, seeing incremental progress, mastering a tricky skill. That feeling becomes more rewarding eventually than the quick dopamine hit from, say, junk food or mindless scrolling.
Savoring the process. I like that. And that feels like a natural lead into the next habit.
It really is. Habit 3 is relentless consistency. You might know it as the compound effect.
Right. Small things adding up over time.
Exactly. If habit 2 is about managing yourself in the moment, habit 3 is about showing up day after day after day, especially when you don't feel like it.
Because motivation isn't always going to be there, right?
Never. Motivation is fickle. It depends on your mood, the weather, whether you had a good night's sleep. It's unreliable. Disciplined people know this. They don't wait to feel like it.
So they operate on discipline, not motivation.
They prioritize discipline over mood. They do the important things because they committed to doing them, period. It's non-negotiable, like an important appointment you wouldn't just skip.
So even if it's a bad day or they only have a little energy?
Yes, this is crucial. They understand that showing up, even imperfectly, is often more important than the quality of the effort on any single day. A short workout, writing just 1 page, making 5 sales calls, even if it feels subpar, it's a win because it reinforces the habit. It maintains the chain.
Keeping the habit loop intact.
Precisely. It reinforces the identity. I am someone who does this even when it's hard.
And this is where that compounding magic happens.
Absolutely. Our brains love dramatic breakthroughs, right? The big win, the overnight transformation. But real sustainable success is almost always built on tiny, seemingly insignificant improvements, compounded over time.
Like the 1% better every day idea.
That's the math of it. A tiny 1% improvement daily leads to almost 38 times growth in a year. It's exponential. Conversely, a 1% slip daily leads to basically 0. Disciplined people focus on that small, repeatable step they can manage even on their worst day.
It avoids that all or nothing trap where if you can't do it perfectly, you do nothing at all.
Exactly. That trap kills progress. If the project is huge, they commit to the small daily action, the 500 words, the 30 minutes of practice, whatever it is. It builds momentum almost invisibly.
And how do they make sure this happens reliably?
They build routines and rituals. They basically automate these productive behaviors as much as possible.
Like a specific morning routine?
Often, yes. A non-negotiable sequence. Maybe exercise, then planning, then the most important creative work before checking email or getting pulled into other people's agendas.
It reduces decision fatigue again.
Tremendously. You don't wake up wondering if you'll exercise or when you'll tackle the big project. The routine decides for you.
And I imagine that routine provides stability when everything else feels chaotic.
It's a huge anchor. Work crisis, family drama, whatever the core routine still happens, it provides this internal stability, keeps the engine running, and constantly reinforces that disciplined identity no matter what the outside world throws at you. #3. Habits of growth and agility. The forging fire and strategic navigation.
Okay, so we've got the blueprint, the self-regulation, the consistency. That feels like a strong foundation. What comes next? How do they handle challenges?
Great question. Habits 4 and 5 are all about navigating difficulty and resistance, which are inevitable on any path worth taking. Habit 4 is about actively embracing discomfort and engaging in deliberate practice.
Embracing discomfort. So that sounds Well, uncomfortable. Our instinct is to seek comfort, right?
It is, but growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. It happens just outside it, in what psychologists call the growth zone or learning zone. Disciplined individuals understand this, and they intentionally seek out tasks that stretch them.
So they look for things that feel a bit hard or awkward.
Yeah, if something feels too easy, it's a signal they might be stagnating. So they'll push themselves, try a harder technique, tackle a more complex problem, learn a challenging new skill. They see that friction not as a negative, but as a necessary ingredient for getting better.
Discomfort is a sign of progress.
Exactly. It's the resistance that builds the muscle, literally and figuratively.
Okay, and how does deliberate practice fit in here? Isn't practice just practicing?
There's a huge difference between just putting in hours and engaging in deliberate practice. Mere repetition, like, say, hitting 100 golf balls absent-mindedly, doesn't guarantee improvement.
Right. You could just be reinforcing bad habits.
Precisely. Deliberate practice is highly structured, intensely focused, and specifically designed to improve targeted aspects of performance.
So what does that look like in action?
Well, it involves setting very specific, measurable goals for the practice session. Not just get better at guitar, but increase picking speed on this specific scale by 10 beats per minute. Focusing on clarity.
Super specific.
Yes, and it requires intense concentration, no distractions. Plus, a crucial element is seeking immediate feedback from a coach or recording objective data to see exactly where you're falling short.
And then adjusting based on that feedback.
Constantly adjusting. And here's the really uncomfortable part. Deliberate practice almost always involves focusing on your weaknesses, not just playing to your strengths.
Ouch. That's the part we naturally avoid.
We do. It's much more fun to do what we're already good at. But the fastest improvement comes from systematically identifying and addressing the weakest links in your skill set. It often feels frustrating, but that focus struggle is what drives mastery.
So it's quality and focus over just quantity of hours.
Absolutely. 10 minutes of highly focused, deliberate practice on a weak point can be more valuable than an hour of mindless repetition.
And doing this consistently, embracing that discomfort, that must build mental toughness.
That's the ultimate outcome of habit 4. Mental toughness isn't something you're born with. It's forged in the fire of consistently pushing through difficulty.
Learning to handle that voice that says, this is too hard, just quit.
Exactly. It's about managing that inner critic, pushing past the urge to give up when things get frustrating or painful. Every time you choose the harder path, every time you overcome that resistance, you're strengthening that psychological muscle. You start reframing challenges as opportunities to get stronger.
That resilience seems vital for the next habit you mentioned, habit 5, which was about problem solving.
Yes. Habit 5 is proactive problem solving and adaptability. Because even with the best plan and the toughest mindset, things will go wrong.
Problems are guaranteed.
Guaranteed. But disciplined people aren't just reactive, they're proactive. They anticipate roadblocks. Remember that strategic pessimism we talked about with the blueprint?
Yeah, thinking about what could go wrong beforehand.
They do that systematically. Before a project kicks off, they'll often brainstorm. Where are we most likely to hit a snag? What are the top 3 potential failure points?
And they plan for those specific possibilities.
They develop contingency plans. They build in buffers, extra time in the schedule, a bit more budget than strictly needed, maybe cross-training team members. So when a common issue does arise, a supplier delay, a software bug, it doesn't derail everything. They often just switch to the pre-planned alternative.
It reduces the panic factor.
Hugely. But what about completely unexpected problems? The true curveballs.
Right, the ones you couldn't possibly anticipate.
When those hit, their training and self-regulation kicks in. The first instinct for many people is to blame someone or react emotionally. Disciplined individuals tend to resist that.
Easier said than done when stress is high.
True, but they often have a process. They engage in analytical dissection. They try to understand the root cause, not just the surface symptom.
How do they do that under pressure?
Techniques like the 5 whys can be really helpful. You state the problem, then ask why did that happen, and then you ask why about the answer you just got. You repeat that 5 times or until you feel you've drilled down past the immediate symptom to the underlying systemic issue.
Okay, so finding the real root cause, not just patching the leak.
Exactly. Is this delivery delay a one-off fluke, or is it a symptom of a flaw in our ordering process? Addressing the root cause prevents the same problem from cropping up again and again. They break complex issues down into smaller parts to find sustainable fixes.
And the last part of this habit is adaptability, pivoting.
Yes, they're not emotionally welded to their initial strategy. The plan is a tool, a hypothesis, not an identity.
So if the data shows plan A isn't working,
They don't just stubbornly push harder on plan A because of ego or sunk costs. They analyze why it's not working, learn from it, and then they pivot. They adjust the strategy, try a different approach.
seeing detours as necessary adjustments, not failures.
Precisely. It keeps the momentum going towards the ultimate objective, even if the path looks different than they initially imagined. It's about being agile. Hashtag Pastor V. Habits of strategic execution and continuous improvement.
All right, this is fascinating. We've covered planning, internal mastery, dealing with discomfort and problems. What's next in the toolkit of these long-term winners?
Now we get into how they manage their resources, specifically their time and knowledge. Habit 6 is all about effective time management and prioritization. They are essentially the architects of their day.
Time management. Feels like everyone struggles with this. What do they do differently?
A key difference is their deep understanding that being busy isn't the same as being productive.
Activity versus results.
Exactly. They are masters of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. They put serious effort into identifying the vital few activities, maybe just 20% of their tasks, that generate 80% of their desired outcomes.
And once they identify those high-leverage activities,
They protect the time dedicated to them ruthlessly. This means getting really good at saying no to things that seem urgent but aren't actually important in the grand scheme of their goals.
saying no is hard.
It is, but they recognize that every time they say yes to a low-impact request, they're implicitly saying no to their own most critical work. They create boundaries around that high-value time.
How do they structure their day to make sure that happens? Is it just a to-do list?
They usually go beyond a simple to-do list. They often use time blocking. They don't just list what they need to do. They decide when they will do it and block out specific time on their calendar.
So scheduling appointments with themselves for their key tasks.
Pretty much, yeah. That 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. block for strategic planning or writing is treated as seriously as a meeting with their most important client. It's non-negotiable.
Does that include scheduling breaks too? Or is it all work?
No, absolutely includes breaks. They understand that sustained performance requires recovery. So they often schedule in breaks, exercise, even meals, recognizing these aren't luxuries, they're essential inputs for keeping the engine running effectively long-term. Preventing burnout is part of the discipline.
Okay, so they block the time. But how do they protect that time from constant interruptions? We live in a world of notifications.
That leads to the idea of creating a focus factory. They are relentless about eliminating distractions, especially during those high-priority time blocks. They understand the huge cost of context switching.
Context switching.
Yeah.
That's when you jump from one task to another, right? Like checking email in the middle of writing a report.
Exactly. Every time you do that, your brain doesn't just instantly pick up where it left off. There's a mental cost, a switching tax, to reload the context of the previous task. It takes time to get back into flow.
And those little interruptions add up.
Massively. They destroy focus and efficiency. So disciplined people are deliberate about controlling their environment, turning off notifications, using website blockers, having a dedicated, clutter-free workspace. It's not just about preference, it's a strategy to maximize cognitive performance.
Higher quality work in less time, basically.
That's the goal. Which flows nicely into Habit 7, continuous learning and self-improvement. They are perpetual students.
They never feel like they've arrived.
Rarely. There's a deep sense of intellectual humility. No matter how expert they become in one area, they maintain this openness to new ideas, to feedback, even to being wrong.
The beginner's mind.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. They understand that complacency is dangerous. The moment you think you know it all is the moment you start becoming obsolete, especially in a fast-changing world. They actively question their own assumptions.
So they're always looking to learn. Is it just casual reading or more structured?
It's usually very intentional. Their learning isn't passive consumption. They engage in active learning.
What does active learning involve?
Things like taking detailed notes when reading, summarizing concepts in their own words to check understanding, maybe teaching the idea to someone else, the Feynman technique. They might invest in courses, certifications, workshops, or seek out mentors.
So it's a deliberate allocation of time and resources to getting smarter.
Yes. They schedule time for study and skill acquisition just like they schedule their most important work. They see it as essential for maintaining their edge.
But just taking in information isn't enough, is it?
Yeah.
How do they make sure they actually use what they learn?
That's where reflective practice comes in. This is huge. They don't just have an experience and move on. They consciously review their experiences, successes, and failures to extract wisdom.
Like a debrief after a project.
Exactly. Or even just a few minutes at the end of the day. They ask themselves targeted questions. What went well today and why? What didn't go well and what specific actions led to that? What did I learn? How can I apply that lesson next time?
So they're actively turning experience into usable knowledge.
Precisely. It transforms mistakes from something to regret into valuable data points. It dramatically speeds up the learning curve because they're consciously integrating lessons and avoiding repeating the same errors.
Okay, we're nearing the end. 7 habits down, all focused on internal drive and external strategy. What's the final piece? Habit 8.
Habit 8 is about recognizing that even the most disciplined person benefits from external support. It's about strategically building robust support systems and leveraging accountability. This is the network advantage.
So it's okay not to go it completely alone. Sometimes needing help feels like a weakness.
That's a common misconception. Actually, seeking accountability is often a sign of strength and strategic thinking. The most disciplined people know that their own motivation and willpower can fluctuate.
So they build in external checks.
Yes, they might have an accountability partner, someone they report progress to regularly, or they join a mastermind group or hire a coach.
What's the real benefit of that? Is it just someone nagging you?
Hopefully not nagging. It serves multiple purposes. One, just knowing someone else is expecting an update creates a powerful incentive to follow through, especially on tasks you might otherwise procrastinate on.
External pressure, basically.
A form of positive pressure, yeah. Two, these partners or coaches provide an objective perspective. They can see your blind spots, challenge your assumptions, and push you when you might let yourself off the hook.
Like a mirror reflecting back what you might not see yourself.
Exactly. And mastermind groups add another layer, collective intelligence. You get diverse viewpoints and solutions for your challenges. So investing time and sometimes money in these relationships is seen as a strategic investment in their own success.
Okay, so accountability partners, coaches. What else falls under support systems?
A huge one is intentionally cultivating a growth-oriented peer group.
The idea that you become like the people you spend time with.
There's a lot of truth to that. Disciplined people are often quite deliberate about who they associate with closely. They seek out peers who inspire them, who challenge them to be better, who operate at a high standard.
It creates like a positive feedback loop.
Absolutely. Being around people who value discipline, growth, and achievement makes it easier and more natural for you to uphold those standards yourself. There's a collective momentum.
And the flip side,
they consciously limit exposure to groups or individuals who are negative, who enable procrastination, or who constantly operate from a victim mentality. They recognize that those attitudes are contagious and can quickly erode their own hard-won discipline.
Curating your environment, both physical and social.
Precisely. And the final element here is actively seeking mentorship.
Learning from people who've already done what you want to do.
Yes, standing on the shoulders of giants. They identify people who have achieved the kind of success they aspire to and find ways to learn from them, reading their work, taking their courses, or, if possible, building a direct mentoring relationship.
What does a good mentor provide that you can't get elsewhere?
It's often not just about tips and tricks. A great mentor can reveal the underlying thinking processes, the decision-making frameworks, the mental models that led to their success. They can help you avoid common pitfalls they encountered.
It's like getting a shortcut on the learning curve.
A massive shortcut, potentially saving years of trial and error. It's a powerful accelerator, and it's a habit you see consistently among top performers. #tag outro.
Wow. Okay, so putting it all together, from the clarity of the blueprint through self-regulation, consistency, embracing discomfort, problem-solving, time management, continuous learning, and finally building that support system. It really paints a picture.
It does, doesn't it? It shows that long-term consistent success isn't really about luck or innate genius as much as we like those stories. It's more about this intricate tapestry of deliberate, practiced actions.
Actions that anyone can learn, presumably?
That's the encouraging part. These are skills, habits that can be cultivated. The people who consistently win aren't necessarily born different. They just consistently do these things. They understand success isn't a final destination you reach.
It's more like a continuous process.
Exactly. A continuous process of becoming, of executing, of refining. The art of success really is a discipline, one that's accessible if you're willing to practice.
So for everyone listening, maybe the challenge is not to try and implement all 8 at once tomorrow.
Oh gosh, no. That would be overwhelming.
Right. But maybe just pick one. Identify one habit from this deep dive that resonates, something you know you could improve. Maybe it's getting more specific with one goal, like in Habit 1. Or maybe it's designing your workspace to minimize distractions, like Habit 6.
Just start with one small incremental step. That's how the compound effect begins.
That feels like a powerful place to end. Focus on that one small step.
Absolutely. And if you found value in this deep dive today, please do remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.